A towering dragon with scales like ancient obsidian stood motionless on a cliff edge, watching as human screams echoed from the burning village below. What happened next would forever alter the course of two civilizations. When the most feared predator in the galaxy made a decision that defied millennia of draconic instinct. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. I always love chatting with you, and it really helps support the channel. Also, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. The settlement of New Haven glowed orange against the twilight sky as flames consumed what had, hours earlier, been a thriving frontier colony. Nestled in a valley between towering purple-tinged mountains on the planet Kepler 5, the human outpost had existed for barely 3 years, a heartbeat compared to the millennia that Draith had soared these skies. Draith's massive wings remained folded against his body, obsidian scales reflecting the dancing fires below. His ancient eyes, with vertical pupils set in golden irises, had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations across the stars. The HFY had lived for over 4,000 years, his kind evolving on a distant world before developing the innate ability to traverse the void between stars through biological wormhole generation, a feat that had astonished the galactic community when dragons first emerged into wider space. The attack on the human settlement had come without warning. 3 Krelver warships had descended from orbit, their energy weapons cutting through the colony's minimal defenses before ground forces swept through to eliminate survivors. The Krelver, a militant, hive-minded species, considered human expansion a threat to their dominance in this sector. Draith had observed it all with detached curiosity. Dragons rarely interfered in the affairs of younger species. His kind preferred solitude, nesting in mountain ranges or asteroid belts far from others. They were apex predators, feared throughout known space, with abilities beyond comprehension to most sentient beings. When dragons did interact with other species, it was typically to demand tribute or establish territorial boundaries. A particular scream caught Draith's attention, higher-pitched, more desperate than the others. His keen eyes focused on a small figure darting between burning buildings, pursued by 2 Krelver soldiers. A human child, female, no more than 7 standard years old. Something stirred in Draith's ancient consciousness, a memory from centuries past. Another child, another species, another burning settlement. He had merely watched then, too. The girl stumbled and fell near the edge of the village. The Krelver raised their weapons. Draith moved, a decision made in a heartbeat after millennia of indifference. His massive wings extended with a sound like thunder, spanning over 30 meters as he launched from the cliff. The sudden movement sent a cascade of rocks tumbling down the mountainside. In 3 powerful beats, he crossed the distance to the village, the downdraft from his wings momentarily smothering some of the flames below. The Krelver soldiers froze at the massive shadow passing overhead, their faceted eyes widening in terror. Dragons were rare in this sector, most having migrated to the galactic core centuries ago. Few of the younger species had ever seen one outside of historical records. Draith's landing shook the ground. His tail swept 1 Krelver soldier aside, sending the insectoid creature crashing through the burning wall of a nearby structure. The second soldier fired its weapon, the energy blast dissipating harmlessly against Draith's scales. Before it could fire again, Draith's jaws snapped forward, crushing the soldier instantly. The human child lay frozen in terror, her small body trembling, eyes wide as she beheld the dragon. Blood from a cut on her forehead ran down her dust-covered face. Her clothes were singed, her breathing rapid and shallow. Draith lowered his massive head, nostrils flaring as he scented her. Fear, smoke, blood, but also something else. Something uniquely human that stirred another ancient memory. A distant explosion rocked the settlement as a secondary power generator detonated. The girl flinched but remained paralyzed by fear. Around them, the settlement continued to burn, the screams now fewer as the Krelver completed their grim work. Draith made another decision. In one swift movement, he lowered his body and extended his right wing, creating a protective canopy over the child. The leathery membrane, reinforced with scales along the exterior, formed an impenetrable shield against the chaos outside. "Be still, small one," Draith rumbled, his voice like distant thunder. Few dragons bothered to learn the languages of younger species, but Draith had always been curious about the beings that spread across the stars. They will not have you. The girl's eyes somehow widened further at hearing the dragon speak. Her mouth opened, but no sound emerged. I am Draith, he continued, his voice softer now, though still resonating deep in his massive chest. What do they call you, human child? She swallowed hard, her small hands clutching at the dirt beneath her. Sarah, she finally managed, her voice barely audible even to Draith's keen hearing. Sarah Chun. Draith nodded his massive head slightly. You show courage, Sarah Chun. Most beings cannot speak in my presence, even those many times your age. A series of sharp commands in the clicking language of the Krelver carried from nearby. Reinforcements were approaching. Draith's golden eyes narrowed. We cannot remain here, he said. The Krelver are thorough in their exterminations. He lowered his body further. You must climb onto my back, between the first and second spinal ridges. There is a natural hollow there where you will be secure. Sarah hesitated, her survival instinct warring with her fear of the massive predator before her. Another explosion, closer this time, made the decision for her. She scrambled forward and climbed awkwardly up Draith's foreleg, her small hands finding purchase between his scales. Draith remained perfectly still until she had positioned herself in the depression between his shoulder blades, just behind his neck. Hold tight to the spinal ridge, he instructed. Do not release your grip, no matter what occurs. He felt her tiny hands grasp the base of the bony protrusion that ran along his spine. Her body was warm against his scales, her heartbeat a rapid flutter that his sensitive hide could detect easily. Without further warning, Draith launched himself skyward, powerful wings displacing huge volumes of air. The sudden acceleration forced a startled cry from Sarah, but he felt her grip tighten as they rose swiftly above the burning settlement. From above, the full extent of the destruction was visible. 3/4 of the colony lay in ruins, with Krelver ground forces methodically searching the remaining structures. Their ships hovered above, powerful searchlights sweeping the perimeter for escapees. One of those lights swung toward Draith, illuminating his massive form against the darkening sky. An alarm sounded. The nearest Krelver ship adjusted its position, weapon systems coming online. Draith felt Sarah's fear spike, her small body trembling against his scales. He banked sharply to the right, accelerating toward the mountains that had been his observation point earlier. Energy blasts from the Krelver ship cut through the air around them, one grazing Draith's left wing. He felt the heat, but no pain. His scales were designed to withstand the vacuum and radiation of space itself. They're shooting at us, Sarah cried, her voice whipped away by the wind, but still audible to Draith's sensitive hearing. They will not succeed, Draith replied with calm certainty. No Krelver vessel has ever brought down a dragon. He banked again, this time diving toward a narrow canyon that cut through the mountain range. The Krelver ship followed, its bulky design ill-suited for the maneuver Draith had in mind. As they entered the canyon, Draith pulled his wings tight against his body, becoming a streamlined missile that shot through the narrow space. Behind them, the Krelver ship attempted to follow but was forced to reduce speed to navigate the tight confines. Draith knew these mountains intimately, having explored them thoroughly since his arrival on Kepler, 3 decades earlier. He navigated a series of sharp turns, the canyon walls blurring past them. There is a cavern ahead, he called back to Sarah. My temporary dwelling. We will be safe there. The canyon widened briefly before ending at a sheer cliff face. To an observer, it would appear to be a dead end, but Draith knew better. He angled upward at the last moment, heading for what looked like a shadow on the rock face, but was actually the entrance to a large cave system. The opening was barely large enough for him to pass through with his wings folded tightly. He slowed dramatically at the last moment, gliding into the darkness with practiced precision. Inside, the cavern expanded significantly, its ceiling rising nearly 60 meters, and the main chamber extending deep into the mountain. Bioluminescent fungi that Draith had cultivated provided soft blue-green illumination. The cave floor was smooth in places, with depressions worn into the stone from Draith's massive body. He landed gently and lowered himself to allow Sarah to climb down. She did so awkwardly, her limbs stiff from holding on during their flight. When her feet touched the stone floor, she stumbled and fell to her knees. Draith moved deeper into the cavern, his talons clicking against stone as he approached a raised platform of flat rock. With a deep exhalation, he released a controlled jet of flame, igniting a pile of combustible minerals and deadwood he had collected. The fire cast warm orange light throughout the chamber, contrasting with the blue-green of the fungi. Sarah remained where she had fallen, watching the dragon with a mixture of awe and lingering fear. Her small body was filthy, her clothes torn and singed. The cut on her forehead had stopped bleeding but left a trail of dried blood down the side of her face. Draith settled himself near the fire, curling his tail around his body in a position that allowed him to observe the human child. "The Krelver ships cannot detect us here," he said. "The mineral composition of these mountains blocks their sensors." Sarah nodded slightly, then winced as the movement aggravated some unseen injury. "Why?" she began, then stopped, seeming to reconsider her question. "Why did I save you?" Draith finished for her. She nodded again, more carefully this time. Draith was silent for a long moment, his ancient eyes reflecting the firelight. The question was valid. Dragons rarely intervened in conflicts between other species. Most would have watched the destruction with indifference, if they bothered to watch at all. "I am not entirely certain," he admitted finally. "Perhaps it was curiosity. Perhaps something else." "My parents," Sarah said suddenly, her voice breaking. "Did you see?" "I did not see them," Draith interrupted, correctly interpreting her question. "I was observing from a distance until I saw you fleeing." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. They were at the community center for the harvest celebration. Everyone was there when the ships came. Her small shoulders began to shake with silent sobs. Draith felt an unfamiliar sensation in his chest, a tightness that had nothing to do with physical discomfort. Dragons did not form attachments as younger species did. They were solitary by nature, coming together only briefly for mating or territorial disputes. Yet the child's grief stirred something within him. "I know loss, small one," he said softly. "I have lived for more than 4,000 of your years. I have seen stars die and worlds change. I have outlived entire civilizations." Sarah looked up at him, tears cutting clean tracks through the dirt on her face. "Will they come looking for me?" "The Krelver?" Draith considered. "They are thorough, as I said, but they also fear dragons. Few species willingly challenge us. They may believe you died in the attack." "What will happen to me now?" she asked, her voice small in the vast cavern. It was a question Draith had not considered. Dragons did not adopt. They did not nurture other species. They certainly did not raise human children. "There are other human settlements on this world," he said. "The nearest is some 500 kilometers to the south. I could take you there." Sarah's face crumpled. "I don't know anyone there. I don't know anyone anywhere else. We came here when I was 4. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Again, that strange tightness in Draith's chest. He shifted his massive body, extending his wing as he had done in the village, creating a sheltered space beside him. "Come," he said. "Rest now. We will decide what to do when you have recovered your strength." Sarah hesitated, then slowly got to her feet and walked toward the dragon. She moved carefully into the space beneath his wing, the leathery membrane creating a tent-like shelter. The heat from Draith's body warmed the enclosed space immediately. "You're so warm," she murmured, some of the tension leaving her small frame as she settled against his side. "Dragons generate significant internal heat," Draith explained. "It is necessary for our biological processes, particularly our ability to traverse space." "You can go to space?" Sarah asked, momentary wonder breaking through her grief. "Without a ship?" "Yes. We create temporary wormholes through a specialized organ in our brains. It is how we spread throughout the galaxy long before other species developed interstellar travel." "That's amazing," she said softly, her eyelids growing heavy. The warmth, combined with exhaustion and emotional trauma, was quickly overwhelming her. "Rest, Sarah Chun," Draith said. "You are safe here." As the child drifted into sleep, Draith remained alert, his senses extended to detect any approach. The Krelver ship had passed overhead twice, but as he had predicted, its sensors could not penetrate the mineral-rich mountains. Draith contemplated the strange turn of events. In his long life, he had never intervened so directly in the affairs of younger species. Dragons were observers, predators, sometimes reluctant trading partners, but never protectors. Yet here he was, with a human child sleeping against his side, sheltered by his wing. Perhaps it was simple curiosity. Humans were relatively new to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only in the last century. They were adaptable, resilient, and surprisingly resourceful for such a physically unimpressive species. Or perhaps it was something deeper, something Draith was not yet ready to examine too closely. As the night deepened, a peculiar sense of rightness settled over the ancient dragon. Whatever had compelled him to save the child, he did not regret his decision. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, both dragon and human rested in the safety of the mountain cavern, an unlikely pairing forged in fire and destruction. Morning came slowly to the cavern, the first hints of dawn visible only as a subtle lightening of the darkness near the entrance. Draith had remained awake through the night, his metabolism requiring far less rest than that of younger species. Sarah still slept beneath his wing, her small body occasionally twitching as dreams, or nightmares, disturbed her slumber. Draith had spent the quiet hours considering their situation. The Krelver would not leave the system immediately. Their standard procedure was to establish a blockade for at least one lunar cycle after an attack, ensuring no survivors escaped to warn other settlements. This complicated the prospect of taking Sarah to another human colony. The child stirred, emerging slowly from sleep. Her initial confusion quickly gave way to remembrance, and Draith felt her body tense against his side. "It wasn't a dream," she whispered. "No," Draith confirmed gently, lifting his wing to allow her to move freely. "It was not." Sarah sat up, wincing slightly. In the improved light of morning, Draith could see that she had suffered more injuries than were initially apparent. Bruises were forming on her exposed arms, and she favored her left side when moving. "You are injured," he observed. Sarah nodded. "I fell when I was running. And before that, when the first explosions happened." She looked down at herself, seeming to truly notice her condition for the first time. "I'm really dirty." "There is a freshwater pool deeper in the cavern system," Draith said. "You can clean yourself there." "Can you walk?" "I think so." She stood carefully, testing her balance. Draith rose as well, his massive body unfolding as he stretched his wings briefly before folding them again. "Follow me. I will show you." He led her deeper into the cavern, where the passage narrowed before opening into a smaller chamber. Here, water seeped from the rock walls, collecting in a natural basin before disappearing into a crack in the cavern floor. The pool was clear and cool, illuminated by more of the bioluminescent fungi. "I will wait outside," Draith said, backing carefully out of the chamber. "Call if you require assistance." Left alone, Sarah approached the pool cautiously. The water looked clean, and when she touched it, it was cool but not uncomfortably so. She removed her damaged clothes and slipped into the water, gasping slightly at the temperature. The cut on her forehead stung when the water touched it, but the pain quickly subsided. She scrubbed herself as best she could, washing away the dirt, soot, and dried blood. Her dark hair, which had been in a neat braid before the attack, was now a tangled mess that she attempted to clean without much success. When she had finished, she put her dirty clothes back on, having nothing else to wear. She made her way back to the main chamber, where Draith waited. The dragon had been busy during her absence. A small pile of fruits and what looked like root vegetables lay on a flat stone near the fire, which he had rekindled. "I gathered these while you bathed," he explained. "There is a forest on the other side of the mountain with edible vegetation. I believe these are similar to what humans at the settlement cultivated." Sarah approached the food cautiously. "How do you know what humans can eat?" "I have observed your kind since you established the colony. Your agricultural patterns were interesting." There was something almost like embarrassment in the dragon's tone. "I have studied many species." Sarah picked up a fruit that resembled a purple apple. "Thank you," she said quietly, before taking a small bite. It was sweet and slightly tart, similar to fruits that grew in the colony's orchards. As she ate, Draith moved to the cavern entrance, peering out at the sky. "The Krelver ships are still in orbit," he reported. "As I expected, they will maintain their blockade for some time." Sarah set down the half-eaten fruit, her appetite suddenly diminished. "What's going to happen to me?" she asked again, the question hanging heavy in the air between them. Draith turned back to her, his golden eyes studying her with an intensity that might have been frightening if not for the events of the previous day. "I have been considering our options," he said. "Taking you to another human settlement presents difficulties while the Krelver blockade remains in place. Attempting to break through could endanger both of us. Could we send a message to tell other humans what happened? The Krelver will be monitoring all communication frequencies. Any transmission would reveal our location." Sarah's shoulders slumped. "So we're stuck here? For the immediate future, yes." Draith settled himself on the cavern floor again. "But that is not necessarily unfavorable. It gives us time." "Time for what?" "Time for you to heal. Time for me to consider more permanent solutions." Draith paused. "Time for us to learn about each other." Sarah looked up at him with surprise. "You want to learn about humans?" "About humans in general, yes. But also about you specifically, Sarah Chun." The dragon's voice softened as he spoke her name. "You are the first human I have interacted with directly. In 4,000 years, I have observed many species, but observation is not the same as understanding." Sarah considered this. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," Draith replied simply. "Tell me about your life in the colony. Tell me about Earth, your species' homeworld. Tell me about human thoughts and feelings and customs." And so began an unusual exchange of knowledge. As the day progressed, Sarah spoke of her short life, her birth on a space station orbiting Earth, her family's decision to join the colonization effort, her experiences in the frontier settlement. She described Earth's varied ecosystems, though she admitted her knowledge was limited to educational videos and her parents' stories. In turn, Draith shared glimpses of his long existence. He spoke of his homeworld, a massive planet with high gravity and dense atmosphere, where dragons had evolved over millions of years before developing their unique spacefaring abilities. He described civilizations that had risen and fallen, cosmic phenomena he had witnessed, and the gradual dispersion of dragonkind throughout the galaxy. "Why are you alone?" Sarah asked eventually. "Aren't there other dragons nearby?" "My kind prefers solitude," Draith explained. "We come together rarely and briefly. Our lifespans are too long, our memories too extensive for constant companionship. We would overwhelm each other." "That sounds lonely," Sarah said, with the simple directness of a child. Draith tilted his massive head, considering. "I have never thought of it as loneliness. It is simply our nature. But you're talking to me now. You're not overwhelming me." A rumble emanated from deep in Draith's chest, a sound Sarah would eventually recognize as draconic laughter. "You are very different from a dragon, small one. Your mind works differently. Your experiences are less weighty. Because I'm young? Partly. But also because you are human. Your species experiences time differently than mine. You live with an intensity that is remarkable." They continued their conversation as day turned to evening. Draith left briefly to hunt for himself and to gather more food for Sarah. When he returned, he found her attempting to create a sleeping area for herself using smooth stones and the softest plant material she could find in the cavern. Without comment, Draith extended his wing again, offering the same shelter as the previous night. Sarah accepted gratefully, curling against his warm side. "Draith," she said softly as sleep began to claim her. "Thank you for saving me." The dragon made no reply, but his wing curled more protectively around the small human form. Days passed in similar fashion, each one bringing increased comfort between the unlikely companions. Sarah's physical injuries began to heal, though Draith knew the invisible wounds of grief and trauma would take far longer. On the 5th day, as they sat near the cavern entrance watching the sunset paint the sky in spectacular colors, Sarah asked the question that had been forming in her mind. "Could I stay with you? Instead of going to another colony?" Draith's golden eyes shifted to her, unblinking. "That would be unconventional. I know, but I don't have anyone else now." She picked at a loose thread on her tattered shirt, not meeting his gaze. "And you're alone too. Humans require many things that I cannot provide," Draith said carefully. "Education, medical care, the company of your own kind. You're smart enough to teach me things," Sarah countered. "And you said dragons know about healing. And," her voice faltered slightly, "I don't want to be with humans I don't know. They'll just feel sorry for me." The orphan from New Haven. Draith was silent for a long moment. The proposal was unprecedented. Dragons did not adopt. They did not nurture. They did not form families as humans understood the concept. And yet, We would need to establish certain parameters, he said finally. And it would not be a permanent arrangement. Eventually, you would need to rejoin your own species. Sarah's face lit up with hope. But I could stay for now? Until I'm older? Until certain conditions are met, Draith qualified. You would need proper nutrition, which means we would eventually need to trade with human settlements. You would need education beyond what I can provide. And when you reach adulthood by human standards, you must be free to choose your own path. I can agree to those parameters, Sarah said, carefully pronouncing the unfamiliar word. Draith inclined his massive head. Then for now, you may remain with me, Sarah-chan. The smile that spread across the child's face created that strange tightness in Draith's chest again. He was beginning to recognize it not as discomfort, but as something else entirely, something dragons rarely experienced. It was, he realized with some surprise, affection. As the first stars appeared in the deepening twilight, dragon and human sat side by side. An alliance formed in fire and grief, now tentatively reaching towards something neither had expected, a future together, however temporary it might be. What neither knew, as they watched the stars emerge, was that their unlikely partnership would eventually reshape the relationship between humans and dragons throughout the galaxy. But that was a story for another time, one that would unfold over many years to come. For now, they had found each other. And for now, that was enough. 3 months passed in relative peace. The Krelver eventually lifted their blockade, but Draith and Sarah remained in the mountain cavern, their unusual alliance deepening into something neither had anticipated. Draith proved to be an exceptional teacher, his millennia of knowledge flowing in carefully measured doses that Sarah's young mind could absorb. He taught her about the cosmos, about the various species that inhabited known space, about the natural cycles of Kepler 5, and about survival in the wilderness. He was careful to include human history and culture based on what he had observed and studied, knowing that Sarah needed to maintain her connection to her own kind. For her part, Sarah brought something to Draith's existence that had been absent for millennia, companionship that challenged his perspective. Her questions often forced him to reconsider long-held beliefs about the universe and his place in it. Her emotional responses to his stories, awe, sadness, joy, indignation, reminded him of the intensity with which younger species experienced life. They established routines. Each morning, Sarah would wake and bathe in the freshwater pool while Draith hunted or gathered food. They would spend the middle hours in lessons or exploration of the surrounding mountains, always careful to avoid any remaining Krelver patrols. Evenings were for stories, with Draith sharing tales from his long life, and Sarah contributing what she could remember from her short one. As the seasons changed on Kepler 5, bringing cooler temperatures to the mountains, Draith recognized that their isolation could not continue indefinitely. Sarah's clothes were little more than rags now, and while she never complained, he knew she required proper human provisions. "We must establish contact with other humans," he announced one evening as they sat by the fire. "You need supplies that I cannot provide." Sarah looked up from the crude wooden figure she was carving with a stone tool Draith had helped her fashion. "Will it be safe? The Krelver have withdrawn from this sector. Their attack on your settlement was likely a warning to other human colonies rather than the beginning of a sustained campaign. Will you take me to another colony then?" Her voice held a note of apprehension. Draith shook his massive head. "Not yet. I propose a different approach. There is a trading post on the far side of this continent, a neutral zone where various species conduct commerce. Humans are among those who frequent it. You want to go shopping?" Sarah asked with a hint of amusement. The rumbling sound of draconic laughter filled the cavern. "In a manner of speaking, yes. I have items of value to trade. Minerals and rare elements I have collected over the decades." Sarah set down her carving. "But won't people be scared of you? You said dragons don't usually interact with other species except to demand tribute." "That is the general pattern, yes. But I am not without diplomatic skills when I choose to employ them." Draith's golden eyes gleamed with something like mischief. "And I believe your presence will help mitigate some of the tension my appearance might cause. You want to use me as a shield?" Sarah's tone was skeptical, but a smile played at the corners of her mouth. "A bridge, rather than a shield," Draith corrected. "Few would expect to see a human child in the company of a dragon. It will create confusion, which we can use to our advantage before fear takes hold." Sarah considered this. When would we go? Tomorrow. The journey will take most of the day, even with my speed. We should prepare tonight. And so they did, gathering the gems and rare minerals Draith had accumulated, fashioning a more secure harness from vines and soft bark to keep Sarah safely on his back during flight, and discussing their approach to the trading post. Dawn found them ready. Sarah secured the makeshift harness around Draith's neck and shoulder ridges, then climbed onto his back with practiced ease. 3 months of daily flights around the mountain range had made her comfortable with dragonback travel, something no other human in recorded history could claim. They launched into the clear morning sky, Draith's powerful wings carrying them swiftly eastward. Below, the landscape of Kepler, 5 unfolded in breathtaking variety, mountain ranges giving way to dense forests, then vast grasslands, and finally the beginnings of a desert region where the trading post had been established. The settlement is called Nexus Point, Draith explained as they soared high above the desert. It began as a way station for interstellar travelers, but has grown into a permanent commerce center. It is governed by a council representing the 12 most frequent trading species, with strict neutrality laws enforced by automated security systems. Are there other dragons there? Sarah asked, her voice carried to Draith's sensitive ears despite the rushing wind. Unlikely. My kind rarely engages in trade. We take what we need when we need it. That sounds like stealing, Sarah observed. Another rumble of draconic laughter. A perspective I have only recently begun to appreciate, thanks to you, small one. By midday, Nexus Point appeared on the horizon, a sprawling collection of domes and spires rising from the desert floor. Force fields shimmered around the settlement, protecting it from sandstorms and regulating the internal climate. As they approached, Draith descended to a lower altitude. We will land outside the settlement perimeter, he said. The arrival of a dragon at the main gate would cause unnecessary complications. He chose a landing site behind a large rock formation about 2 kilometers from the settlement's eastern boundary. Once on the ground, Sarah dismantled the harness and tucked it into a small pouch Draith had fashioned for her from the shed membrane of his wing. Remember our plan, Draith said as they prepared to approach the settlement on foot. I will remain in the designated large species zone near the outer market. You will enter the inner markets with our trade goods and conduct the transactions, as we discussed. Sarah nodded, though her expression betrayed nervousness. It would be her first interaction with other beings, human or otherwise, since the destruction of New Haven. You will do well, Draith assured her, lowering his head to her eye level. You are Sarah Chun, friend of Draith. Few can claim such a distinction. Her shoulders straightened at that, and she managed a smile. Let's go then. Their approach to Nexus Point caused exactly the stir Draith had anticipated. The perimeter guards, a mix of automated systems and organic sentinels, reacted with alarm at the sight of a dragon approaching, weapons powering up automatically before recognition protocols engaged. Species identified, Draconis stellaris, announced an automated voice from a hovering security drone. Advisory, approach with caution. Historical aggression index, extreme. I come to trade, Draith announced in the common galactic language, his deep voice carrying easily across the distance. I claim peaceful intent under Nexus Point Accord, Section 7. The invocation of the trading post's foundational law, specifically the section guaranteeing safe passage to all species declaring peaceful intent, caused a moment of confusion among the guards. Their weapons remained powered but not aimed directly at Draith. Verify peaceful intent, demanded the lead guard, a tall humanoid with metallic skin, a centurion, one of the elder species known for their role in establishing the trading network. In response, Draith lowered his body to the ground in a non-threatening posture and extended his wings slightly to reveal Sarah standing beside him. The sight of a human child voluntarily accompanying a dragon created exactly the shocked silence Draith had predicted. I am Sarah Chun, she called out, her voice remarkably steady. Draith saved me when the Krelver attacked New Haven Colony. We've come to trade for supplies. The Centurion guard approached cautiously, his silver eyes shifting between dragon and human. This is unprecedented. Nevertheless, it is our reality, Draith replied. Will you honor the Nexus Point Accord, or shall we take our business elsewhere? After a brief consultation with his colleagues, the guard nodded. You may enter, but the dragon must remain in the megafauna zone. The human may move freely within the settlement. Acceptable, Draith agreed. They were escorted through the massive outer gates, drawing stares from everyone they passed. News of their arrival spread quickly through the settlement, and by the time they reached the megafauna zone, an open-air market designed for larger species, a crowd had gathered at a respectful distance. "Remember the items we need," Draith said quietly to Sarah as she prepared to enter the inner market areas. "Clothing, preserved food, medical supplies, and if possible, educational materials." Sarah nodded, clutching the pouch containing their trade goods, gems and rare minerals that would fetch a high price in any market. "I'll be back as soon as I can." "Take your time," Draith advised, "and observe carefully. This is an opportunity to learn about other species as well." As Sarah walked away, Draith settled himself in the designated area, his massive form drawing continued stares and whispers from the gathered crowd. He ignored them, maintaining a dignified posture that discouraged approach without appearing threatening. A shadow fell across him, and Draith turned to find a human male standing nearby, closer than any of the other observers had dared to come. The man was tall for his species, with dark skin and gray-streaked hair tied back from his face. He wore the utilitarian clothing of a spacer, with multiple tool pouches attached to his belt. "Never thought I'd see the day," the man said in accented standard. "A dragon at Nexus Point with a human child as a companion. The universe still has surprises, it seems." Draith studied the human with interest. "You show remarkable courage, approaching me so directly." The man shrugged. "I've been traveling the stars for 30 years. Seen enough to know that appearances and reputations aren't always accurate." "A wise perspective," Draith acknowledged. "You have me at a disadvantage. You know what I am, but I do not know you." "Marcus Chun," the man replied. "Independent trader. I run supplies between the colonies in this sector." Draith's full attention focused on the human with laser intensity. "Chun," he repeated. "The child's surname is Chun." Marcus went very still. "What child?" "Sarah Chun, from New Haven Colony." The color drained from Marcus's face. New Haven was destroyed. The Krelver left no survivors. "We received the automated distress signal, but by the time anyone could respond." His voice trailed off. "There was one survivor," Draith said. "I was observing from the mountains when the attack came. I intervened when I saw the child fleeing Krelver soldiers." Marcus took an unsteady step forward. "Sarah Chun, short for Sarunya? Dark hair, small for her age." "You know her," Draith stated rather than asked. "If it's the same Sarah, she would be my niece." Marcus's voice had dropped to a whisper. "My brother Wei and his wife Elena moved to New Haven 3 years ago. Sarah is their daughter." Draith's golden eyes widened slightly, the only visible sign of his surprise. The child mentioned no extended family. "We weren't close," Marcus admitted, regret evident in his tone. "Wei and I had a falling out years ago. I've been meaning to visit, to try to reconcile, but there was always another job, another route to run." He ran a hand over his face. "And now it's too late." "Perhaps not entirely," Draith said carefully. "The child is here, in the inner market, trading for supplies. We have been living in the mountains since the attack." Marcus stared at him in disbelief. "You've been caring for her? A dragon?" "An unconventional arrangement, but functional." Draith's tone held a hint of defensiveness. Before Marcus could respond, a commotion erupted at the entrance to the inner market. Sarah emerged, running full speed, pursued by 2 Krelver soldiers. Behind them, market security guards were shouting and attempting to intervene. Draith was on his feet instantly, a deep growl building in his chest. But Marcus moved faster than the dragon would have expected, drawing an energy pistol from beneath his jacket and firing 2 precise shots. The first struck the ground at the Krelver soldiers' feet, forcing them to halt. The second hit the wall above them, showering them with debris. The distraction was enough for settlement security to catch up and surround the Krelver, weapons raised. Sarah ran straight to Draith, her face pale with fear. The dragon extended his wing protectively around her as Marcus approached more cautiously. "What happened?" Draith demanded. "They recognized me," Sarah gasped, still catching her breath. "They said I was supposed to be dead, that all humans from New Haven were eliminated." Marcus knelt a few paces away, holstering his weapon. "You okay, kid?" Sarah looked at him suspiciously, pressing closer to Draith's side. "Sarah, this is Marcus Chun," Draith explained. He claims to be your father's brother. Her eyes widened. Uncle Marcus? Dad's pilot brother. Marcus nodded, his expression a complex mixture of grief and hope. That's me. Been a while, Squirt. You've grown. Dad said you were never coming to visit, that you were too busy being important. Despite her words, there was no accusation in her tone, only the direct honesty of a child. Marcus winced. He wasn't wrong. I should have made time. He glanced at the security personnel still dealing with the Krelver soldiers. But right now, we have more immediate concerns. Those Krelver shouldn't be here. Nexus Point is neutral territory. They must have been seeking survivors, Draith reasoned. Their methods are thorough to the point of obsession. Marcus nodded grimly. And now they know Sarah is alive. They'll report back to their hive command. We should leave, Draith said. Immediately. Wait. Marcus held up a hand. My ship is docked at the southern port. It's faster than trying to flee on foot, and I have weapons systems that can hold off pursuit until we reach orbit. Draith's eyes narrowed. You propose we leave together? She's my niece, Marcus said simply, and you've kept her safe when I couldn't. I'd say that makes us allies, at least for now. Sarah looked up at Draith. Can Uncle Marcus come with us? The dragon considered their options. Fleeing on wing would make them visible and vulnerable. A ship offered both speed and defensive capabilities. And if this human truly was the child's blood relation. Very well, Draith agreed. But we move now. Marcus nodded. Follow me. Stay close and try not to draw more attention. They moved quickly through the settlement, Marcus leading the way through less populated areas toward the southern docking base. Draith's presence continued to draw stares, but news of the Krelver incident had spread, and most beings gave them a wide berth. Marcus's ship was a modified transport vessel, larger than a personal craft, but smaller than a true freighter. Its hull bore the scars of long use, but Draith's keen eyes noted the upgraded propulsion systems and weapons ports that weren't standard on civilian vessels. Not exactly built for passengers of your size, Marcus admitted as they approached the ship. But the cargo bay should accommodate you if you don't mind being a bit cramped. I have traveled through the vacuum of space with only my own biology to sustain me, Draith replied dryly. A cramped cargo bay is hardly concerning. Marcus grinned despite the tension of the moment. Fair enough. He activated the ship's entry ramp with a command from his wrist device. All aboard who's coming aboard. Sarah hesitated, looking up at Draith. Where will we go? Somewhere safe, Marcus answered before Draith could respond. I know a place the Krelver won't find us. A small moon in the Cygnus system with a research outpost. Good friends of mine run it. They'll give us shelter while we figure out our next move. Draith exchanged a look with Sarah. Their carefully constructed life in the mountain cavern was about to change again. But the appearance of the Krelver at Nexus Point had eliminated any choice in the matter. We accept your assistance, Draith said formally. They boarded quickly, with Draith folding his wings tightly to squeeze through the cargo bay doors. The space was indeed cramped for him, but manageable. Sarah insisted on staying with him rather than joining Marcus in the cockpit. The ship's engines fired moments later, and they felt the gentle lurch of detachment from the docking clamps. Through a small viewport in the cargo bay, they watched as Nexus Point fell away beneath them. Your uncle seems capable, Draith observed as they achieved orbital velocity. Sarah nodded, her expression thoughtful. Dad always said he was the best pilot in the sector. But they fought about something. Dad never wanted to talk about it. Families are complex in all species, Draith said. Even dragons have their disputes, though ours typically involve territorial boundaries rather than emotional matters. Do you think we can trust him? Draith considered. His reaction to learning of your survival appeared genuine, and he did act to protect you from the Krelver without hesitation. Their conversation was interrupted by Marcus's voice over the intercom. We've got company. 3 Krelver pursuit vessels just launched from a cloaked ship in orbit around Nexus Point. Strap in if you can. This might get bumpy. Draith immediately curled his body protectively around Sarah. Hold tight to my foreleg, he instructed. She complied without question, having learned to trust the dragon's instincts. The ship accelerated sharply, pressing them against the cargo bay floor. Through the viewport, they could see the curve of Kepler, 5 growing more distant as Marcus pushed the engines to their limits. They're gaining, Marcus reported, his voice tense but controlled. Preparing to jump to FTL, but I need to put some distance between us first or their disruptors will knock out our drive. Can your weapon systems not hold them off? Draith asked. Against one, maybe. 3 is pushing it. These are military-grade vessels. The ship banked hard to port, throwing them against the bulkhead. Sorry about that. Trying to stay out of their targeting locks. Draith's mind raced through possibilities. His kind had evolved natural defenses against the vacuum of space, but he had never attempted to fight while exposed to it. Still, the alternative was capture or destruction. Open the cargo bay doors, he said suddenly. What? Marcus's surprise was evident even over the intercom. Dragons can survive in vacuum for limited periods. I can engage the Krelver vessels directly while you prepare the FTL jump. That's insane, Marcus protested. Even if you can survive space, you can't maneuver like a ship. Not like a ship, no? But dragons have other advantages. Draith turned to Sarah, who was staring at him with wide eyes. I will return, small one. This I promise you. Draith, no, she pleaded, clinging tighter to his foreleg. The ship shuddered as it took a glancing hit from one of the pursuers. Alarms blared throughout the vessel. We're out of options, Marcus admitted grimly. Bay doors opening in 10 seconds. Atmosphere will be retained in the rest of the ship. Draith gently disengaged Sarah's grip. Trust me, he said softly, as I have come to trust you. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she nodded and moved to a secure corner of the bay where Draith had indicated. Doors opening now, Marcus announced. The cargo bay depressurized instantly as the massive doors slid open, revealing the star-filled blackness of space. Draith's body immediately adapted, specialized membranes covering his eyes, nostrils sealing, a biological process activating that would allow him to survive without oxygen for up to 30 minutes. With a powerful push of his legs, he launched himself from the ship into the void. His wings extended fully, catching the solar wind in a way that no mechanical vessel could replicate. This was the natural environment of dragonkind, the space between stars where they had evolved to travel. The 3 Krelver vessels were visible as sleek, insectoid shapes against the backdrop of Kepler 5. They hesitated momentarily at the unexpected sight of a dragon emerging from their prey. Draith used that hesitation. Drawing on an ability rarely seen by other species, he activated the specialized organ in his brain that allowed dragons to create localized wormholes. Not large enough for his entire body, that would require more energy than he could spare at the moment, but large enough for the superheated plasma that built up in his specialized flame sac. A small tear in space-time appeared directly in front of the lead Krelver vessel. From Draith's jaws erupted a stream of blindingly bright plasma, channeled through the micro-wormhole to emerge just meters from the Krelver ship's forward sensors. The effect was devastating. The plasma, hot enough to rival a small star, melted through the ship's forward armor instantly. Secondary explosions rippled along its hull as systems overloaded and ammunition cooked off. Within seconds, the vessel was reduced to expanding debris. The remaining 2 ships broke formation, trying to target the dragon with their weapons. But Draith was already moving, his massive wings allowing him to change direction with a speed and grace that defied his size. He created another micro-wormhole, this one opening behind the second Krelver vessel. Another plasma burst, another explosion. The second ship spun away, not completely destroyed but severely damaged and no longer a threat. The third vessel, recognizing the futility of continuing the engagement, began to turn away. Draith pursued, determined to eliminate all witnesses to their escape. A final micro-wormhole, a final burst of plasma. The third ship joined its companions as expanding debris in orbit around Kepler 5. His task completed, Draith turned back toward Marcus's ship, which had maintained its course away from the planet. As he approached, the cargo bay doors opened to receive him. Re-entry was less graceful than his exit had been. His energy reserves were depleted from creating the micro-wormholes and generating the plasma bursts. He barely managed to fold his wings in time to avoid damaging them on the bay doors. As atmosphere returned to the cargo bay, Draith collapsed onto the deck, his massive body heaving with exertion. The specialized membranes retracted from his eyes, his nostrils unsealed, and his respiratory system struggled to adjust back to breathing air. Sarah was at his side instantly, her small hands touching his scales with concern. Draith, are you okay? Before he could answer, Marcus entered the cargo bay, his expression one of absolute astonishment. What in all the stars was that, he demanded. You just took out 3 Krelver warships like they were nothing. Nothing, Draith managed between labored breaths. Considerable energy expenditure. Marcus shook his head in disbelief. I've heard stories about dragons' abilities, but that was beyond anything in the records. My kind prefers to keep certain capabilities private, Draith explained, his breathing slowly normalizing. Maintains our advantage. Well, I'm not complaining, Marcus said. You just saved our lives. We're clear to jump to FTL now. Should reach the Cygnus outpost in about 72 hours. Sarah remained close to Draith's side, unwilling to leave even when Marcus suggested she might be more comfortable in the crew quarters. The dragon curled his wing around her protectively, providing the familiar shelter that had become their ritual. Rest now, small one, he rumbled softly. The danger has passed. For the moment, Marcus added, more to himself than to them. But those Krelver at Nexus Point were scouts. When they don't report back, more will come. Then we must prepare, Draith said. The Krelver are persistent, but they are not invincible. Marcus studied the dragon with newfound respect. No, it seems they're not. Not when faced with a dragon protecting his own. His gaze shifted to Sarah, who had already fallen asleep against Draith's side, exhausted by the day's events. I owe you a debt I can never repay. She's all the family I have left. She is special, Draith acknowledged. I did not anticipate the bond that would form when I saved her from the burning village. Life has a way of surprising us, Marcus said. Even those who've lived for millennia, I guess. A rumble of draconic laughter shook Draith's massive frame. Indeed. Now go, pilot your vessel. I will watch over the child. Marcus nodded and returned to the cockpit, leaving dragon and human alone in the cargo bay. As the ship entered FTL, stars stretching into lines of light visible through the small viewport, Draith reflected on the strange turn his long existence had taken. For thousands of years, he had observed younger species with detached curiosity at best, contempt at worst. Dragons did not involve themselves in the affairs of short-lived beings. They did not form attachments. They did not protect. They did not care. And yet, in the span of a few months, everything had changed. A human child had awakened something in him that had lain dormant for millennia, something he had not known he possessed, the capacity for connection, for growth, for love. As Sarah slept peacefully beneath his wing, Draith made a silent vow. Whatever came next, Krelver, hardship, the inevitable challenges of raising a human child among the stars, he would face it, not as an aloof observer, but as an active participant in this new, unexpected life. The ancient dragon had watched a village burn and had wrapped a wing around a human child. In doing so, he had ignited a flame of his own, one that would eventually spread throughout the galaxy, changing the relationship between dragons and humans forever. But that was a story that would unfold over many years to come. For now, as the ship carried them toward uncertain futures, dragon and human rested together, united by circumstance, bound by choice, and forever changed by each other. The journey to the Cygnus research outpost passed without further incident. Marcus proved to be a skilled pilot and a surprisingly thoughtful host, ensuring Sarah had proper meals and comfortable sleeping arrangements, though she continued to prefer Draith's side for actual rest. The outpost itself was a modest facility built into the rocky surface of a small moon. Its primary function was xenobiological research, but it also served as a way station for independent traders and scientists traveling through the sector. Upon their arrival, they were greeted by the outpost's director, Dr. Ilana Reyes, an old friend of Marcus who listened to their story with increasing astonishment. A dragon and a human child, she said, shaking her head in wonder as they sat in her private quarters. Together, and now being hunted by the Krelver. Just when I think I've seen everything the universe has to offer. Can you help us? Marcus asked. We need a safe place, at least temporarily. Dr. Reyes nodded thoughtfully. The outpost is small, but we have an auxiliary hangar that could accommodate our larger guest. She glanced at Draith, who had to duck his massive head to fit in the room. And the Krelver have no jurisdiction here. This moon falls under Galactic Science Consortium protection. The Krelver are not known for respecting jurisdictional boundaries when in pursuit of their objectives, Draith observed. True, Dr. Reyes conceded. But we're not without defenses. And more importantly, we're not without friends. She turned to Sarah, who had been quietly observing the conversation. I understand you've been through a terrible ordeal, young lady. Would you like to see our hydroponics garden? We're growing some fruits from Earth that you might recognize. Sarah looked to Draith for approval before nodding. Can Draith come too? Dr. Reyes smiled apologetically. I'm afraid the corridors to the garden are too narrow for your friend. But it's not far, and you'll be perfectly safe. After some gentle encouragement from Draith, Sarah reluctantly agreed to accompany Dr. Reyes, leaving the dragon alone with Marcus. You've taken good care of her, Marcus said once they were gone. Better than I would have expected from a dragon. Draith finished for him, amusement in his tone. No offense intended. None taken. It has been an educational experience for us both. Marcus leaned forward in his chair. But now we need to discuss the future. The Krelver won't stop looking. They're pathologically thorough when it comes to eliminating what they perceive as threats. And a human child is such a threat. Not the child specifically, but human expansion in this sector threatens their dominance. The attack on New Haven was a message to other colonies. Draith's golden eyes narrowed. A message written in blood. That's the Krelver way. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration. What I don't understand is why they're so focused on finding survivors. One child shouldn't matter to them. Unless they fear what she witnessed, Draith suggested. Or perhaps what I witnessed. Marcus's eyes widened with sudden understanding. You saw the attack from beginning to end. I did. And I saw something the Krelver would not want reported to the human authorities. What? Draith's voice lowered. The Krelver ships were not alone. There was another vessel present, observing from high orbit. It bore markings of the Galactic Concord. The Galactic Concord, an alliance of elder species that supposedly maintained peace and order throughout settled space. If they had been present during an unprovoked attack on a human colony and had done nothing to intervene, that would shatter the Concord's neutrality claim, Marcus whispered. Humans would withdraw from all cooperation agreements. It could trigger an interspecies war. Precisely, Draith confirmed. Which is why the Krelver cannot allow any witnesses to survive. Marcus stood and paced the small room. We need to get this information to the right people. Human government officials who can use it as leverage against both the Krelver and the Concord. A dangerous gambit, Draith cautioned. It would place Sarah at even greater risk. She's already at risk, Marcus countered. At least this way, her survival would serve a purpose beyond the Krelver's obsession with eliminating witnesses. Before Draith could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the outpost. A voice came over the communication system. Unidentified vessels approaching. All personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Marcus and Draith exchanged a grim look. They found us faster than I expected, Marcus said. We must find Sarah, Draith replied, already moving toward the door, his massive body barely fitting through the opening. They made their way through the outpost's corridors, Draith forcing himself through spaces never designed for a being of his size. Personnel ran in all directions, preparing defensive systems and securing sensitive research. They found Dr. Reyes and Sarah in the hydroponics garden, the director already leading the child toward a secure area. Krelver? Marcus asked as they approached. Dr. Reyes nodded grimly. 3 ships, heavy cruiser class. They're demanding we surrender all survivors of New Haven Colony or face orbital bombardment. They cannot be allowed to take the child, Draith stated, his voice leaving no room for argument. I've already initiated evacuation protocols, Dr. Reyes said. We have several small research vessels that can break orbit while our defensive systems distract the Krelver. We can get Sarah on one of them. And go where? Marcus demanded. They'll just keep hunting her. Dr. Reyes's expression hardened. Not if they believe she's dead. She turned to Draith. How good are you at creating distractions? The dragon's eyes gleamed with understanding. Exceptionally good. A plan quickly formed. Draith would emerge from the outpost and engage the Krelver ships directly, drawing their attention and fire. Meanwhile, Marcus would pilot a small research vessel carrying Sarah away from the moon, using the battle as cover for their escape. Where will you take her? Draith asked as they prepared to part ways. Earth, Marcus replied. It's the last place the Krelver would look, and it's heavily defended. She'll be safe there while I make contact with government officials about what you witnessed at New Haven. Draith turned to Sarah, who had been uncharacteristically quiet throughout the planning. You understand what must happen now, small one. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. You're not coming with us, are you? Not immediately, Draith admitted. I must ensure your safe departure. And afterward, I have matters to attend to that will help ensure your continued safety. Will I see you again? The question came out as a whisper. Draith lowered his massive head to her eye level. This I vow, Sarah-chun. Our paths will cross again. Dragons do not make promises lightly, for we must live with our words for millennia. She threw her arms around his snout, embracing him as best she could. I'll miss you, and I you, small one. Now go. Your uncle will protect you until we meet again. With a heavy heart, Draith watched as Sarah reluctantly followed Marcus toward the docking bay where the research vessel awaited. The dragon then turned to Dr. Reyes, who was coordinating the outpost's defenses. I require access to the surface, he said, and perhaps a moment to prepare. Dr. Reyes nodded. The main airlock can accommodate you. It was designed for large research equipment. She hesitated, then added, What you're doing for that child? It's extraordinary. She is extraordinary, Draith replied simply. Minutes later, Draith stood on the barren surface of the moon, staring up at the 3 Krelver cruisers visible against the star-filled sky. His body began the biological transformations necessary for space travel, membranes covering sensitive organs, specialized cells activating to protect against radiation and vacuum. As he prepared to launch himself toward the enemy vessels, Draith reflected on how profoundly his existence had changed since that moment he had watched New Haven burn. For millennia, he had observed the universe with detached curiosity. Now, he was an active participant, fighting not for territory or dominance, but for the future of a human child who had somehow become precious to him. With a powerful push of his legs, Draith launched himself from the moon's surface, his massive wings extending to their full span. His target was the lead Krelver cruiser, which was beginning to position itself for orbital bombardment of the research outpost. As he approached, weapons fire erupted from the cruiser's defense systems. Energy beams and projectiles sliced through the vacuum around him, but Draith's movements were too swift, too unpredictable for targeting systems designed to track conventional vessels. From the corner of his eye, he saw a small research ship, Marcus and Sarah's escape vessel, launching from the outpost and immediately engaging its stealth systems. Good. The Krelver's attention was fixed firmly on the more obvious threat, himself. Draith opened his jaws, channeling energy into his specialized flame sac. Creating micro-wormholes in battle drained his reserves quickly, but he needed only to disable, not destroy, all 3 ships. Just enough to allow the research vessel to escape and to convince the Krelver that all witnesses had perished. The battle that followed would later become legend among the species that inhabited the sector. A single dragon against 3 Krelver war cruisers, dancing through vacuum and energy beams with impossible grace, striking with precision and devastating force. One by one, the cruisers suffered critical damage. Weapon systems melted by precisely targeted plasma bursts, engines disabled by micro-wormholes that redirected their own energy against them. Draith was careful not to destroy the vessels entirely, leaving their life support and communication systems intact. As the 3rd cruiser's main engines died, Draith positioned himself before its bridge viewports, knowing that the Krelver commanders could see him clearly. He opened his jaws wide, allowing plasma to build visibly at the back of his throat, a clear threat. The cruiser's remaining weapons powered down. A surrender. Draith transmitted a message directly to the Krelver vessels using the specialized organ that allowed dragons to communicate across vacuum. The human child of New Haven died in your attack. I witnessed it. There are no survivors. Your mission is complete. But know this, the dragons are watching now. Attack another human settlement, and you will face not one of my kind, but many. It was a bluff, of course. Dragons rarely acted in concert, and most would have little interest in protecting human colonies. But the Krelver had no way of knowing that, and the demonstration of power they had just witnessed would lend credibility to the threat. With that, Draith turned away from the disabled vessels and launched himself into the depths of space. Not toward the research outpost, where observers might track his course, but in the opposite direction, away from the path Marcus and Sarah had taken. Once he was certain he was beyond the Krelver's sensor range, Drath activated his most energy-intensive ability, full wormhole generation. His specialized brain organ created a tear in space-time large enough for his entire body to pass through, connecting his current location to a point hundreds of light-years distant. The journey through the wormhole was instantaneous from the perspective of outside observers, but for Drath, it was an extended moment of disorientation as his consciousness stretched across space. When he emerged, he was in a familiar star system, one that housed an ancient dragon sanctuary on a gas giant's moon. Here, he would recover his strength and plan his next moves. The Krelver would believe Sarah had died, but Drath held no illusions that the matter was truly settled. Sooner or later, they would learn the truth, or some other threat would emerge. His vow to Sarah was not a temporary commitment, but a lifetime promise. And dragons lived very, very long lives. Months passed. On Earth, Sarah was adapting to life on humanity's crowded homeworld under Marcus's guardianship. The information about the Galactic Concord's complicity in the New Haven attack had been carefully presented to human authorities, creating diplomatic leverage that resulted in new protection agreements for human colonies. The Krelver, facing pressure from both human negotiators and the implicit threat of dragon intervention, had withdrawn from the disputed sectors. Peace, however uneasy, had been established. But Sarah had not forgotten Drath. Each night, she would look up at the stars visible through her window in Marcus's apartment and wonder where her dragon protector might be. Despite her uncle's kindness and the relative safety of Earth, she felt incomplete, as though part of her had been left behind in that mountain cavern on Kepler 5. Then came the night of the meteor shower. Sarah sat on the apartment's balcony, watching streaks of light cross Earth's sky, when one particular light began behaving strangely. Instead of falling in a straight line, it moved in graceful arcs, growing larger by the moment. Her heart began to race. She knew that movement, had seen it countless times during their flights around the mountains of Kepler 5. "Uncle Marcus," she called, not taking her eyes off the approaching figure. "He's back. Drath is back." Marcus emerged from the apartment, following her gaze to the sky. His hand moved instinctively toward the weapon he still carried, then relaxed as he recognized the distinctive silhouette now visible against the night sky. "Well, I'll be damned," he murmured. "Dragons really do keep their promises." Drath landed with surprising delicacy on the large public park adjacent to Marcus's apartment building. His arrival caused immediate panic among the park's few nighttime visitors, who fled at the sight of the massive predator. Sarah didn't hesitate. She ran from the apartment, Marcus following close behind, calling for her to wait. But nothing could have slowed her headlong rush toward her friend. Drath lowered his massive head as she approached, golden eyes gleaming with what could only be described as joy. "Hello, small one," he rumbled. Sarah threw her arms around his snout, hugging him as best she could. "You came back," she whispered. "I promised I would." Drath's voice was as she remembered it, deep and resonant, but gentle. By now, a crowd had gathered at a safe distance, and the wail of security vehicle sirens could be heard approaching. Marcus caught up to them, slightly out of breath. "You certainly know how to make an entrance," he said to Drath. "Earth has protocols for extraterrestrial visitors, you know. Landing in a public park isn't exactly following procedure." Drath's rumbling laugh vibrated through Sarah's arms, still wrapped around his snout. "Forgive me. I was eager to fulfill my promise." "Are you staying?" Sarah asked, finally releasing him and stepping back to look up at his massive form. "Can you stay?" Before Drath could answer, the park was flooded with lights as security vehicles surrounded them. Armed officers emerged, weapons raised uncertainly. None of them had been trained for confronting a dragon. Marcus stepped forward, hands raised. "It's okay. He's a friend." To everyone's surprise, a calm voice responded from behind the security line. "We are aware of who he is, Mr. Chun." The crowd of officers parted to reveal an elegant woman in a formal diplomatic uniform. Admiral Helena Reyes, Earth's representative to the Galactic Concord and, as it happened, Dr. Alana Reyes's sister. "Drath of the Stellar Brood," she said, addressing the dragon directly. "Your arrival has been anticipated, though perhaps not quite so publicly." Her expression was stern, but there was a hint of amusement in her eyes. Drath inclined his massive head in a gesture of respect. "Admiral Reyes, your sister speaks highly of you. And she of you." The Admiral turned to the security officers. "Stand down. This is a diplomatic visit." To the gathering crowd of civilians, she announced, "Citizens, please return to your homes. This area is now temporarily restricted for security purposes." As the crowd reluctantly dispersed, Admiral Reyes approached Sarah. "You must be Sarah Chun. Your uncle has told us much about you and your unique friendship." She smiled warmly. Not many humans can claim a dragon as a personal protector. Sarah moved closer to Drath's side, still somewhat overwhelmed by the situation. "He saved me," she said simply. "Yes, he did," the Admiral agreed. "And in doing so, he may have saved much more than just one life." She turned back to Drath. "Your actions have created quite a stir among both human authorities and the Galactic Concord. A dragon actively intervening to protect a human child, then threatening the Krelver on behalf of humanity? It's unprecedented." "These are unprecedented times," Drath replied. "The younger species are evolving in unexpected ways. Perhaps it is time for the elder races to adapt as well." Admiral Reyes studied him thoughtfully. "Including dragons?" "Beginning with dragons," Drath corrected. "I have spent these past months in communion with others of my kind. Many were intrigued by my experience with Sarah. Some have begun to reconsider our traditional isolation." This was clearly news to the Admiral, whose professional composure slipped momentarily. "Are you suggesting an alliance between dragons and humans?" "Not precisely an alliance," Drath said carefully, "but perhaps a relationship of mutual respect and occasional cooperation, starting with one specific proposal." "Which is?" Drath's golden eyes moved to Sarah. "I wish to establish a formal guardianship over Sarah Chun, recognized by both human authorities and draconic law. She would divide her time between Earth and my territories, learning from both cultures." Sarah's eyes widened with hope and excitement. Marcus stepped forward, his expression concerned. "Wait a minute. She's my niece. I'm her legal guardian. And you would remain so under human law," Drath acknowledged. "I propose a shared arrangement. Sarah needs human connection and education, but she has also been touched by draconic influence, and that cannot be undone. She stands between our worlds now, a bridge that could benefit both our kinds." Admiral Reyes looked thoughtful. "It's an interesting proposal. Unprecedented. But then again, everything about this situation is unprecedented." She glanced at Sarah. "What do you want, child?" Sarah didn't hesitate. "I want to be with both of them. Uncle Marcus is my family. But Drath." She looked up at the massive dragon. "Drath saved me. He protected me. He taught me things I never knew existed." The Admiral nodded slowly. "A formal interspecies guardianship would require new legal frameworks. It would set a precedent for future human-dragon relations." "That is my hope," Drath said. For a long moment, Admiral Reyes seemed to weigh the implications, her eyes moving between dragon, child, and uncle. Finally, she nodded decisively. "I believe this can be arranged. It will require diplomacy, legal innovation, and considerable patience from all parties. But the potential benefits—" She smiled suddenly. "Well, they're quite literally astronomical." And so began a new chapter in the relationship between humans and dragons, one that would eventually lead to unprecedented cooperation between the species, changing the balance of power throughout the galaxy. The Krelver threat receded as word spread of dragons taking an active interest in human affairs. The Galactic Concord, shaken by the revelation of their complicity in the New Haven attack, adopted more equitable policies toward younger species. As for Sarah Chun, she grew up between two worlds, spending part of each year on Earth with Marcus, learning human knowledge and customs, and part in Drath's territories among the stars, absorbing the ancient wisdom of dragonkind. She became the first of many human children to study under draconic tutelage, and in time, the first human ambassador to the loosely organized draconic territories. When asked, in later years, how this remarkable partnership began, both Sarah and Drath would tell the same story, of an ancient dragon who watched a village burn, then wrapped a wing around a human child. It was a simple act of compassion that had altered the course of galactic history, proving once again that even in the vastness of space, the smallest connections can create the most profound changes. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.